Welcome to our deep dive today. We're going to be tackling the AI revolution and figuring out how we can all navigate this thing.
It is a revolution, isn't it? The source material really paints a picture of some massive shifts coming our way.
Definitely feeling that. We'll be covering how AI could totally shake up the job market, even the possibility of a post-capitalist society.
Oh, and we can't forget crypto. That landscape is morphing constantly.
And with all that change, there's bound to be some social and political bumps along the way. But what we really want to focus on is how to adapt.
Exactly. Taking all this information and distilling it into something actionable.
Something our listeners can actually use. So let's kick things off with a big one, that elephant in the room, AI's impact on jobs. We're seeing these crazy AI tools like ChatGPT pop up left and right.
And it's not just about boosting productivity anymore. We're talking about entire job roles potentially becoming obsolete. The speed at which this is happening is unlike anything we've seen before.
It's a little mind-blowing, to be honest. Just think about coding. You used to need years of specialized training. Now you can get AI to do it with a few simple prompts.
And it's not just tech, right? This is bleeding into law, accounting, marketing, even fields that people always considered safe bets.
It makes you wonder, what happens to all those professionals?
Mhm.
If AI can draft contracts, analyze legal documents, write marketing copy, these are people's livelihoods we're talking about.
It's a valid concern. But the source material also points out that while some jobs will disappear, new ones will emerge. The key is being able to anticipate those opportunities and being ready for them.
So less reacting, more proactively shaping the future.
Exactly. Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about this idea of AI-driven abundance. The source material even floats the idea of a post-capitalist society.
Okay, now that's a big one. Is that even possible? Are we really talking about a world where things cost next to nothing or are even free?
The theory is, as AI and automation get even more sophisticated, the cost of producing pretty much everything goes way down, which could, theoretically, lead to a world where scarcity isn't the main driver of our economic system anymore.
Whoa, that's a lot to wrap your head around. That would completely change everything. What happens to motivation in a world like that? What even is human value when robots can basically outperform us at almost everything?
Those are some of the big questions the source material grapples with, and there's a real chance we could see an existential crisis as those traditional work structures start to break down.
Yeah, I can see that. People derive so much of their identity and purpose from their jobs. So what's the alternative?
Well, the source material suggests that family and personal relationships could become even more central. Those close connections would provide a sense of belonging and purpose.
Makes sense. People naturally crave that sense of community and connection. But it can't be all about family and friends, can it? What about work or some sense of achievement?
Right. And the source material also highlights creative pursuits as a potential avenue for fulfillment. Things like art, music, contributing to culture. Those could become even more vital in this new landscape.
So almost a return to basics in a way.
Mhm.
Technology pushing us to rediscover those core human connections and the power of creative expression.
Exactly. It's a pretty fascinating paradox, isn't it? And it really makes you stop and think, what truly matters? What are my passions? What brings me joy?
Big questions. And they become even more relevant as traditional markers of success. The job title, the paycheck, maybe those start to lose their significance.
That's right. The source material is really pushing us to think about resilience and adaptability, not just in our careers, but in our personal lives too, building a strong foundation for ourselves in a world that's becoming increasingly unpredictable.
And speaking of adaptability, let's talk about something that embodies that perfectly. Cryptocurrency.
Oh yeah, crypto. Everyone's got an opinion on it, but it's so important to look past the hype and the meme coins and actually try to understand the potential of blockchain.
I think a lot of people get lost in all the noise. What does the source material have to say about the real-world applications?
It gives a great example using the gaming industry. Imagine gamers actually owning and trading their digital assets, like in-game items, on decentralized platforms.
That makes a lot of sense. You mean true ownership, not just something controlled by a gaming company.
Exactly. And that's just one example. The source material highlights a ton of potential applications, revolutionizing supply chains, increasing transparency in voting systems. It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it.
But for all that potential to be realized, there needs to be some sort of structure, right?
Absolutely. The source material is really clear on that. Balanced regulation is key.
So finding that sweet spot where you're fostering innovation, but also protecting people.
Right. Because clear guidelines benefit everyone, entrepreneurs, investors, users. It just creates a more stable environment overall.
And speaking of protecting people, let's talk about those meme coins. Doge, Shiba Inu. They're everywhere.
They're definitely the more speculative side of crypto. A lot of hype driven by social media trends. And while they can be fun, even profitable for some, there's also a real ethical concern there.
Especially when you have influential figures promoting them to their followers. People who maybe don't fully grasp the risks involved.
It's a good reminder that investing, particularly in something as volatile as crypto, requires a lot of caution and research. You got to be able to distinguish between projects with real-world value and those that are just riding a wave of internet hype.
Sound advice. Always be critical, do your homework. Now let's zoom out a little and consider the global economic landscape. I mean, even without AI, things are changing rapidly.
No doubt. Our current global model is built on interdependence. You've got China dominating manufacturing, the U.S. leading in tech.
Right, but that also creates some serious vulnerabilities.
Exactly. What happens when those supply chains get disrupted? What happens when geopolitical tensions rise?
It's putting all your eggs in one basket. Not the smartest strategy.
The source material suggests we might start seeing a shift towards more self-sufficiency. Countries diversifying their economies, becoming less reliant on any one source for essential things.
So spreading the risk, so to speak.
Exactly. And it's not just nations that should be thinking this way.
Oh, you mean individuals too? Like diversifying our own skill sets?
Absolutely. The source material talks about diversifying investments, exploring multiple income streams, becoming more multifaceted.
It's all about building that safety net, right?
Yeah,
Being adaptable in a world where the ground rules are constantly changing.
exactly. And let's face it, as we move towards this AI-driven future, it's not all going to be smooth sailing.
You're talking about the social and political side of things.
Right. The source material predicts some potential upheaval as societies try to wrap their heads around these massive shifts.
I mean, historically speaking, that's not surprising, is it? Every major tech revolution has had its share of unrest.
Exactly. And this time, the speed at which things are changing is unlike anything we've ever seen. So yeah, the source material suggests we could see some pockets of violence, unrest, as people struggle to adapt.
It's kind of a scary thought. But is there anything we can do to, I don't know, soften the blow? Make this transition a little less chaotic?
Well, the source material proposes a few things. On a governmental level, they talk about robust retraining programs, equipping people with the skills they'll need for these new jobs that will emerge.
So proactive rather than reactive. Preparing people for what's coming instead of just trying to fix things after they've already broken down.
Right. Investing in education and skills development is crucial. And on that same note, strengthening social safety nets.
Like unemployment benefits, healthcare, things like that.
Exactly. Even exploring things like a universal basic income, providing a baseline level of financial security for everyone during this transition period.
It's about creating a cushion, giving people breathing room to adapt and figure out their next steps.
Right. But it's not just about government stepping up. Individuals have to take ownership of their own adaptability and resilience as well.
How do we do that? It's easy to say be adaptable, but how do you actually put that into practice?
Well, the source material talks a lot about cultivating a growth mindset, being open to lifelong learning, always picking up new skills, being able to pivot when needed.
So being willing to step outside your comfort zone, maybe even reinventing yourself entirely.
Exactly. It could mean exploring a totally different career path, starting your own business, even relocating to where the opportunities are.
It's a pretty big mindset shift for a lot of people. But I guess that's the reality of the world we're moving into.
It is. And on a more personal level, the source material also emphasizes the importance of well-being, making sure you're nurturing your relationships, doing things that bring you joy, taking care of your mental health.
So remembering that your worth isn't tied to your productivity.
Exactly. Because when everything else feels chaotic, having those strong social connections, those hobbies that bring you fulfillment, that's what keeps you grounded.
It's like building that inner resilience. And speaking of tools for navigating complexity, the source material talks a lot about first principles thinking.
Ah, yes. First principles. It's a really powerful concept.
Can you break it down for our listeners? How does that actually work?
Basically, it's about taking a step back from the noise, from all the assumptions and conventional wisdom, and really getting down to the fundamental truths.
So instead of just accepting things the way they are, you're questioning everything.
Right. You're breaking things down to their core principles and building your understanding from the ground up.
And why is that so important, especially now with all this rapid change happening?
Because in a world that's constantly evolving, a lot of the old ways of thinking just don't apply anymore. First principles thinking helps you see things with fresh eyes, come up with truly innovative
It's
solutions.
about being adaptable, right?
It
Being a lifelong learner.
Exactly. And you can apply it to anything, navigating the job market, building AI systems, even figuring out your own personal goals.
Can you give us some concrete examples? Like, how would you apply first principles thinking to the job market, for instance?
Sure. Let's say you're worried about AI taking over your job. Instead of panicking, ask yourself, what are my core skills? What am I really good at? What problems do I enjoy solving? It's about figuring out what makes you tick, what truly motivates you. Then you can start exploring career paths that align with those principles.
So it's not about trying to fit yourself into some pre-existing box. It's about creating your own path.
Exactly. And that path will be much more fulfilling and resilient in the long run. Now, on a societal level, let's take education as an example. We know AI is going to disrupt the job market in a big way, so how do we adapt?
Yeah, does our current education system even make sense anymore?
That's the question we need to be asking. We need to go back to first principles and think, what is the purpose of education? What are the fundamental skills and knowledge people will need to thrive in an AI-driven world?
So it's not just about memorizing facts or preparing for specific jobs that might not even exist in a few years.
Right. It's about fostering adaptability, critical thinking, problem solving, creativity. Those are the skills that will always be valuable no matter how much technology advances.
Makes sense. And it seems like the source material, while acknowledging the potential downsides of this AI revolution, ultimately ends on a note of hope.
I'd say so. I mean, change can be scary, but it also brings opportunity. It's up to us to harness the power of AI for good, to create a future that benefits everyone.
So we're not just passive bystanders in all of this. We have agency, we have the power to shape the direction things go.
Exactly. We need to be mindful of the potential risks, of course, but we also need to embrace the possibilities. This could be a chance to build a more equitable, sustainable world.
I like that. It's not about fearing the future. It's about actively creating the future we want to see.
Absolutely. And that's why I think this conversation has been so important. We've explored the potential challenges, but we've also talked about solutions, about ways to adapt and thrive in this new landscape.
We've talked about the importance of cultivating resilience, of embracing lifelong learning, of using first principles thinking to navigate complexity.
And ultimately, I think it comes down to remembering that technology is a tool. It's up to us as humans to decide how we use it, to make sure it serves our values, not the other way around.
That's a powerful message to end on. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. We hope you found it insightful and empowering. And remember, the future is not something that happens to us. It's something we create together.